the heart of this nation, under skies so blue,
there's a spirit that's stirring, values strong and true.
from the mountains to the prairies, from the cities to the sea, we stand for liberty, for faith and family. We're diving deep into the heart of what we believe.
Okay, let's get straight to it. You're tuned in right as some pretty big news is breaking. It looks like Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has actually agreed to a face-to-face meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, that's the headline. Quite something.
The date they're floating is this Thursday, May 15th, 2025. And the location? Turkey.
Turkey again, acting as that potential intermediary.
Exactly. And we're hearing this comes after, well, quite a bit of encouragement from the U.S. president.
Seems like a significant push from Washington, yeah.
So what we really need to unpack today is, what does this actually mean, this potential meeting right in the middle of everything that's still going on?
Well, the first thing that jumps out is just the possibility itself. I mean, considering the rhetoric, the distance between them, getting these two in a room, that's significant.
Absolutely. And Zelensky, he didn't just say yes, he immediately put conditions on the table.
Right. He's not just showing up.
No. He's demanding a full, lasting ceasefire. And he wants it to start this Monday. Says it's essential for any, real diplomacy to even begin.
That's a very strong opening position, isn't it? A clear precondition. Stop the fighting first, then we talk substantively.
It really puts the focus squarely on, well, halting the violence immediately. Strategically, you can see how a pause might help Ukraine too, right? Gives them space.
But definitely, time to regroup, reevaluate. It's not just humanitarian, though that's obviously huge. It's tactical as well.
And he was very public about it. He tweeted, let me find the exact words. Yeah. We await a full and lasting ceasefire starting from tomorrow to provide the necessary basis for diplomacy. There is no point in prolonging the killings, and I will be waiting for Putin in Turkey on Thursday, personally.
That personally adds weight.
It does. And then he adds, I hope that this time the Russians will not look for excuses.
Oof. That little jab there.
Yeah.
It speaks volumes about past frustrations, doesn't it? Or a real sense of skepticism, perhaps.
Suggests maybe previous attempts or offers didn't go anywhere or got bogged down.
Yeah.
He's basically saying, show up this time. For real.
It puts the pressure on Putin to demonstrate seriousness, definitely. And it frames Zelensky as ready and waiting.
He goes on in that thread saying, Ukraine has long proposed this, our partners are proposing it, and the whole world is calling for it. We await a clear response from Russia.
So positioning it as something widely supported, not just a Ukrainian demand.
Right. And then he adds, with some force, Russia will have to end this war anyway. The killings must stop. And this bit, Ukrainian forces will be ready to respond symmetrically to ensure fairness.
That's the other side of the coin. Diplomacy, yes, but from a position of strength or at least readiness. We'll talk, but don't mistake that for weakness.
It's that balance. And he also mentioned partners being ready to ramp up sanctions if Russia rejects the ceasefire.
Invoking the international pressure. That's another key lever being pulled.
Yeah. And he finishes with this direct appeal. I will be in Turkey this Thursday, May 15, and I expect Putin to come to Turkey as well, personally. He repeats the personally.
Doubling down.
And I hope that this time Putin won't be looking for excuses as to why he can't make it. Then he lists support. We are ready to talk. Thursday, Turkey. President Trump has expressed support. All the leaders support this. It really feels like he's throwing down the gauntlet.
It does. It paints a picture of Zelensky being ready, willing, and backed, waiting for Putin to step up.
Okay, so now let's flip to Putin's side.
Right, because he was the one who actually suggested this Thursday meeting initially over the weekend.
Correct. But his condition, or rather his approach, is quite different. He's called for talks without preconditions.
So the exact opposite of Zelensky's demand for a ceasefire first.
Pretty much. Putin's framing is, let's talk first, aim for lasting peace. And maybe talks could lead to a ceasefire down the road, but no upfront halt to fighting required, just to sit down. Interesting. And we also heard he's planning to talk to Turkey's President Erdogan about sort of facilitating things.
Yeah, leveraging that Turkish channel again. Talks potentially leading to a ceasefire. It keeps Turkey central to the process.
Okay. And Putin also had his own, let's say, pointed remarks. He put out a statement, too.
What did he say?
Well, quoting here, our proposal, as they say, is on the table. The decision is now up to the Ukrainian authorities and their curators.
Curators, that word again.
Yeah, who are guided, it seems, by their personal political ambitions and not by the interests of their peoples.
Yeah.
Pretty sharp language there.
Very sharp. It fits that narrative. Moscow often pushes that Kiev isn't independent, that external forces or internal ambitions are driving things, not the people's actual interests. It deflects responsibility.
The reports also say he's keeping up a generally tough public line, not exactly rolling out the welcome mat for Zelensky.
Well, no, that wouldn't necessarily be expected given everything, but it does set a certain tone.
And he also stressed that talks need to get to the root causes of the war.
Ugh, the root causes. That's a phrase loaded with history and disagreement.
How so? What does that typically mean from Moscow's perspective?
Well, historically, that often points towards things like NATO expansion, the status of Russian speakers, broader security architecture in Europe, issues that go way beyond the immediate invasion.
Whereas Ukraine would say the root cause is
The invasion itself, unprovoked aggression violating their sovereignty. So you see, even agreeing on what the problem is, the root cause, is a massive hurdle. It opens up a much wider, potentially intractable field for discussion.
Okay, so vastly different starting points on preconditions and even the scope of talks. Now, let's bring in the U.S. angle, President Trump specifically.
Right, his involvement seems quite direct here.
The reporting says he prompted Zelensky to accept Putin's offer. That sounds like more than just gentle encouragement.
Prompted does suggest a strong nudge, maybe some diplomatic muscle was flexed behind the scenes. It shows the U.S. is actively trying to get this meeting to happen.
And Trump didn't stay behind the scenes. He went public on social media.
What was the message there?
Very direct, urging Zelensky to attend immediately and without preconditions. He posted, President Putin of Russia doesn't want to have a ceasefire agreement with Ukraine, but rather wants to meet on Thursday in Turkey to negotiate a possible end to the bloodbath. He used all caps for bloodbath.
Wow. So directly contradicting Zelensky's ceasefire demand and framing Putin's offer as the path to ending the violence.
Exactly. He continues, Ukraine should agree to this immediately. Again, all caps. He seems to think the meeting itself is the priority, regardless of preconditions.
Get them in the room, see what happens. A pragmatic, perhaps impatient approach.
Seems like it. He added, at least they will be able to determine whether or not a deal is possible. Basically, use the meeting as a test.
Find out if there's any common ground at all.
And if it is not, European leaders and the U.S. will know where everything stands and can proceed accordingly. So it's also about information gathering for future strategy.
Makes sense. Even a failed meeting tells you something.
But then he throws in some doubt. I'm starting to doubt that Ukraine will make a deal with Putin, who's too busy celebrating the victory of World War I. He brings that up.
Interesting. Tying current events to historical narratives, questioning Putin's focus.
And then finishes with, you guessed it, more caps. Have the meeting now. And says he supports it. Very forceful.
So a clear instruction almost. Take the meeting, figure out if a deal's possible, and then we'll see. It adds another layer of pressure, this time on Zelensky maybe.
It certainly seems to push Zelensky towards Putin's no preconditions stance, at least for the initial meeting. Okay, so stepping back from all this detail.
Yeah.
We've had this whirlwind, right? Back and forth statements, social media blasts, breaking stories, all leading to this potential tentative agreement for Thursday.
It feels fragile though, doesn't it?
Absolutely. That's the big question hanging over everything. Will it actually happen, given these opposing demands right out of the gate?
The ceasefire precondition from Zelensky versus Putin's no preconditions. That's a direct conflict before they even potentially pack their bags for Turkey.
You want to hope, obviously. Everyone hopes for a breakthrough, something positive.
Of course, any step towards de-escalation or peace is hoped for.
But, you also have to be realistic about the personalities involved, the history, the deep mistrust. These are not leaders known for easily backing down.
No, they're not. And the stakes are incredibly high. So while the agreement to meet is a step, it's fraught with uncertainty. Temperament, strategy, external pressures, anything could still happen.
Okay, so let's just quickly recap for everyone listening. What we have is a maybe, a potential face-to-face meeting agreed in principle. Zelensky, Putin, Thursday, Turkey.
Driven, it seems, partly by a significant push from the U.S. president.
But with major sticking points already clear, Zelensky demands a full ceasefire starting Monday to make talks meaningful.
While Putin, who proposed the meeting date, insists on talks without preconditions, aiming for eventual peace and wanting to address those deep root causes.
And President Trump is publicly urging Ukraine to take the meeting now, without preconditions, to see if any deal is even possible.
So you're left with this fundamental tension, differing goals, different conditions.
Exactly. So the questions for you, the listener, are really, can they bridge that gap, even to get into the room on Thursday? And if they do meet, what could realistically come out of it, given how far apart they seem?
It's definitely one to watch very, very closely this week. The next few days could be critical in seeing if this possibility firms up or fades away.